All right, welcome back, everyone, and we're carrying on with Dr. Dave Regis's openings repertoire suggestions for new and beginner players, and indeed crusty, grizzled old veterans like me. And in the last video, we'd started looking at the two knights variation of the Italian game, the Gioco Piano. So, okay, where we had 12 games in total, we've done 4. We're going to do 4 more in this video, and then 4 in the next one. And then we'll be done with the e4, e5 openings. Speaking of which, e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and knight to f6. And this is the two knights defense to the Italian game, called the two knights defense because black develops the two knights first. Very creative. And if you didn't see the previous video, the knight to g5 line, that is very, very good, perfectly playable, but very, very wild, very, very complicated. Isn't mentioned in Dr. Dave's repertoire, but that's not because there's anything wrong with it. So you can go with the whole knight g5 and d5 kind of stuff, and it's all very complicated, and you probably want to avoid the fried liver, especially if you're playing black. But I think that probably the point of this repertoire is that we're trying to stick to playing the early d4 as the main point of our defense to this, to e4, e5. So we want to get the early d4 in. And so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, do be aware that there is this interesting and slightly lively attack on this square that black has to meet with d5, and it's all very complicated. So anyway, where are we at? So d4 is next. So as I say, the whole of this this part of the book, based on e4, e5, is on a relatively early d4. So d4 is played, and e takes d4 is the probably the best move. Absolutely level at the minute. White castles, because as we're seeing more and more, we don't want the kings left in the center of the board in these open openings. It's too dangerous. Black develops the bishop, absolutely reasonably, and white moves the pawn forward, as so often, with a gain of time against the knight, at least in theory, because black, as we've seen several times in the other videos, instead of defending their own knight from the attack, just moves the pawn forward and attacks the white bishop. And absolutely fine. Computer's saying level, so nothing wrong with this. And white probably could move the bishop, but we get pawn takes knight, and we get pawn takes bishop. And we've seen very similar things to this before in previous vids. Rook to e1 check, because black hasn't managed to get castles. So bishop to e6, and knight to g5 is played, and queen to, oops, nearly put that on the wrong square, queen to d5. And it looks all very good. Black is okay here. It's basically level. Knight to c3. We've seen, say, very similar in a different video where you can't play pawn takes knight. Queen takes queen. Bishop takes is impossible because the rook is pinning the bishop. In fact, let's just have a look at that. Takes. We have seen very similar previously. This is now, it's not going to let me do it, however much I try, because the bishop's pinned. So anyway. So knight to c3 forces the queen to go across to f5, and we get knight c to e4. We want to save the knight because now the queen's not under attack. We're going to end up losing the knight. Knight c4, bishop to f8, because you not unreasonably want to defend this from the pawn. And knight takes f7. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, it's fine. King takes f7, knight to g5 check, and king to g8. And let's say we have seen almost an identical line in a previous video, but it's worth mentioning again because it's such an interesting next move. And not g3, but g4 is played. And the point of g4 is this. If you play queen takes queen, bishop takes is impossible because the pawn goes on to checkmate. And black has managed to get their king to the castle position, but this rook's stuck. This bishop's gone back to where it started, and black gets checkmated. I think it's fair to say, just going back a couple of moves here, if black doesn't play queen takes g4, I'm pretty confident that with queen to g6, although it's a bit of a mess for black, as you can see, it's not too bad. The computer's saying it's level. It's a proper mess, because how on earth are you going to get this rook out? And to me, I don't know. I mean, the computer's a computer. It says it's level, but this kind of stuff to me if I was playing black, would feel a bit dangerous. But okay. So that's our first quick game there. As I say, bit similar to one we've seen in a previous video, but doesn't matter. So the next game we've got is actually two real players, and we're going to the 1999 Russian Under-12 Girls Championship. I have never ceased to amaze me where Dr. Dave finds all these games. They're obviously on a big database somewhere, but he certainly does his research. Now, this game only goes on for 8 moves before black resigns, and white is a player called Kvach, 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 I don't know, and black Kirillova. Can pronounce that one, that's okay. So here we go, usual moves, e4, e5. Oh, the lines are turned off, good. A knight to f3, knight to c6. So we know what's coming. Now in this one, we get a transposition. White plays this first. And we've seen that that's what that leads to in other games. It doesn't make any difference. You're just going to get the same position by a different order. So takes, bishop c4, and knight f6. Okay, so we've got to exactly the same place by a different move order. We get e5 because we know that we quite like making moves that attack enemy pieces. And we get this move, queen e7, that we've seen a few times. And I say we've seen a few times because the whole point of learning this repertoire is that you're going to get very similar positions over and over again against e4 and e5. So, okay. So it doesn't matter if it looks similar. So white can't play pawn takes knight because of the pin. So white castles. And black can't now play, knight takes, queen takes, because rook to e1 and you win the queen. Shall I put that on the board? Yeah, go on. Why not? Okay, so this isn't good. You're threatening to win the queen, and if the knight gets in the way, well, there's moves. Probably that one. No, the computer doesn't like that one, maybe, but there'll be some way to attack this. What's the computer recommend? Do it quickly. Oh, f4. Wow, didn't expect that. Oh, it's still saying f3 is okay. So I was actually okay. Yeah, f3 is okay because the knight can't move. The knight's completely pinned. So you can't really do that. So what does black do instead? The white is castled and black plays knight to e4. And we've seen this before. The knight coming in here when it's not defended is not great. And so rook e1 attacks the knight. So again, the knight, we've got to do something with the knight. We've got to defend it. And so black plays the knight to c5. And I'll leave it up to you for a second just to see, because you know there's a winning move coming. Whoops, you know there's a winning move coming because it's +7. But if you want to work out what white's best move is here, hit pause and I'll count down from 3, 2, 1, and the best move is bishop to g5. So again, we see this theme all the time, the knight supporting the bishop and the queen still on this diagonal. What on earth is going on here? Well, let's see. The queen's attacked. We've got to save the queen. So what can we do? No. Obviously not to either of these two squares because of the bishop. And, oh, we run out of squares. Okay, so the queen can't move as such. So all we can really do is put something in the way. And if we play f6, what we get is pawn takes. And now the queen is attacked. The rook is pinning the queen. And, you know, what are you going to do here? What are you actually joking aside? What are you going to do? If you go here, bishop takes is winning. Because queen takes bishop, it won't let me do it. Because it's illegal, because rook takes king. And since you can't move the queen, the next move from white's just going to be bishop takes queen. So it's curtains. So we'll just go back a little bit here and just see what should be happening here. Going back a move. Yeah, so not knight takes e5. So in this position, it's still pretty handy for white, by the way. Queen e7 was not a good move. But what can black do? Well, nothing much. Knight g4 is a bit better. Let's see, instead of queen e7, yeah, as we've seen frequently, the best move the computer's recommending is d5. So ignoring that attack and going for that attack. So that's a common theme in this situations. I keep saying it is, although we're seeing some spectacular quick victories, actually, if both sides know what they're doing, and particularly if black knows what they're doing, they will get to the middle game safely. It's just very, very complicated. Very different from what I tend to play with my delightful system openings, and it's all sort of safe and easy and calm. This is a very different way of playing, much more risky. So, okay, let's carry on with the next two games, and we've got another real game here, and we're in somewhere called Klatovy. I think we might have seen a game from this tournament already, and we've got a guy called Novak playing white against somebody called Bayer playing black. So Novak versus Bayer. Okay, well, let's see what we get here. So no doubt it will be very similar to the themes we've seen already. So knight to f3, let's just turn the lines off for the time being. Knight to c6 and d4. So we've got it in this order. E takes d4, bishop to c4, and knight to f6. So there's our two knights variation. It's just that it's come about from a Scotch game this time. So d4 was played early, but it's only a transposition. So we should know by now as white that e5 is the best move here. And this time, instead of this not such good move, black plays the correct d5. And so we know that you can play this and this, but it's okay for both sides. In this game, bishop to b5, white tries something else. So basically pinning the knight. So this knight now cannot move, which means it's not really defending this pawn and it's not really attacking that one, not at the moment. So what happens next? Black plays knight to e4. He's got to do something because obviously his knight's under attack. So knight to e4 and knight takes d4 from white. So we've seen very similar patterns to this in previous games, and that's what will happen here. You will get similar ideas repeating. And we get bishop to e7 from black. So black presumably is hoping to get castle pretty quickly. But as you can see from the bar, not so good, because presumably there's two pieces attacking here and only the pawn defending. So let's see what is correct. We get knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, bishop takes check, forking the king and the rook, bishop in the way. And now an interesting idea, white doesn't just dive in with bishop takes rook, which I'm sure is perfectly good, but actually plays queen d5, and now black resigns. So what happens? Bishop takes, queen takes, probably here, and now you just take the knight. So that's even more deadly. Now let's just quickly see where black went wrong. And here is where, in this position here, black played the really natural bishop e7. It isn't very good. You've got other moves. You can play bishop to, all my arrows are going wrong. You can play bishop to c5, and that's probably safe because you've got weird goings on here then from the bishop and the knight. So that's some risky stuff. And it's saying that's completely level. I'm guessing you can play bishop to d7 and simply defend this knight a second time. Absolutely fine. Yep, bishop d7. And bishop b4 check is also okay. And then here and here. So the point is, black is okay. In this position, black has ways to save the game. But one slip, watch the bar. Wow, one slip, and suddenly we've gone to +6. Scary stuff. So you have to be very accurate in these in this opening. Okay, we've got one more quick game here. And where are we here? We've got Schulte playing white, Knauf playing black in Germany, the German under-18 championship of 1999. Wow. Okay, let's see what we get this time. So, right, so we're going to get now okay, so I'm looking at the moves here. Yeah, okay, so we've got a slightly weird move order, but let's do it. And so knight f3, knight c6, so the usual kinds of things. Oops, turn the lines off a sec. Bishop to c4. And this time bishop to c5 instead of knight f6 first. So now c3, now knight f6. So we've got these extra two moves, and it's starting to look a bit like the main line of the Gioco piano that we've had in different videos, previous videos, but it doesn't matter because the ideas all overlap. It's always these very similar ideas based on the early d4. So speaking of an early d4, there it is. and takes and castles. So no recapture from white here. And black plays d5. And there goes the bar a little bit, but okay, it would seem worse. Takes, and okay, so we've got our old problem, haven't we? That although it's not a complete disaster, there's a black king stuck in the middle of the board while the white king is safe. I suspect that's going to be part of the problem. So queen to b3 is another theme that we've seen before, the queen and the bishop lining up to this rather weak pawn. And knight c to e7 is the next move. And I think the bar is going to go shooting off up to the top. Yeah, +4 and a bit to white. So why? What on earth is the mistake here? Well, actually, it's a little tactical mistake. If you can calculate, you'll see it. What should white play here? Have a quick look. I'll carry on in 3, 2, 1. And of course, the right move is check. Because when the king gets out a check or black puts something in the way, for the sake of argument, just play queen there. Queen takes bishop and white has just won a whole piece. And we've seen this, again, very similar theme in some of the other videos. Now let's quickly see where black goes wrong. Just pop the lines back on. So all okay at the minute. That kind of, plus point a little bit is what you'd expect from an opening because white has the first move. Castles, it's fine. In fact, the computer says if anything after castles, black's probably a little bit better. And in fact, it's recommending knight takes e4, which is incredibly risky to me. I would have been really worried about that. I'd have been thinking, oh my God, the knight's going to be on the same line as my king. But the computer isn't scared of things like that because it's incredibly good at calculating. So anyway, black's absolutely fine. Even if black takes the pawn, it's still level. But d5, not so good. +1 to white now. Takes and knight takes. And it's starting to look a bit ropey, isn't it? Queen to b3 is played. The computer actually thinks you should play rook to e1. Not surprisingly, there's a black king stuck in the middle of the board. But that's not what was played. Queen to b3 was played. And black's okay after bishop to e6. Black is okay. It's still playable. It's a bit because you're kind of losing this pawn, but it's not hideous. +1. But what we can't do is just not spot that this bishop's defended and just the outright blunder. Oops. Okay. So that's quite quick. We should hopefully be starting to get the idea now, with only one video left, of these sorts of themes in this opening. So whatever happens for white, Dr. Dave is recommending that we go for this quick d4, quick opening of the center, get castle, get our rook in the middle, and go straight for the black king. Interesting stuff. Okay, we've got 4 more games on this 2 nights variation, and then we will be pretty much finished with this opening system, and then we can move on to the next thing. So hopefully that was useful, and I'll see you all soon for a bit more.